Hi, Pam Warwick back, and here we go with part 2 of session 1 for grades 6, 7, and 8, Planning with Integrity, Pacing with a Purpose. Let's take a look at the discussion point. Remember that in part 1, it was about what? What is horizontal alignment? What is vertical alignment? Now we're going to take a deep look about how to do this. So we will start with identification of the priority standards or the major clusters. And how will we identify them? If you guys know me, you've seen them before. The things with the little green squares. Yes, the major clusters and our standards. Those that we need to master in order to be successful in the next grade level. And then we will, after the identification, we will match them with our current curriculum and build a pacing guide or a grade level timeline. After that, only then can we do purposeful planning, that we've identified what needs to be taught and to what timeline or what length of time that it needs to be taught. And then we can plan and deliver. And of course, after delivery of instruction, we have to find out, do they know what the skills they're supposed to have, or have they mastered? Simply put, how do we know they know? And that's assessments. So first of all, identification of priority standards. I put the great big green square there for you to say, do those, not the blue, not the yellow, for the spring semester or your trimesters from January till testing in May. This is what we're going to focus on, 100%, not 85 or 65, 100%. So how do I know which standards are priority at 6, 7, and 8? Let's take a look. Whoa, we have seen this before, right? So major supporting and additional clusters for grade 6. Green for major clusters, blue for supporting, and yellow for additional. Now we'll talk about each one of those. What does that mean in the whole pacing timeline thing? So what is important at 6th grade in order for us to be successful in 7th grade? All right, what do we have to measure? Master. What do we have to master? Ratio and proportion is the very first time that an RP objective has come on the scene. So 6th grade teachers, you actually take what we know about fractions and equivalent fractions, and we bring that up to speed in 6th grade with ratio, written as a fraction can be, and proportion, the equivalence of fractions as a proportion. We understand those ratio concepts and use ratio reasoning in order to solve problems. And we bring in that unit fraction or that unit ratio, and sometimes we have 2 units in proportions. All very, very important that you lay that foundation, and you are actually the teacher in 6th grade that transitions those 3 years of fractions in 3, 4, 5 into ratio and proportion. So it's a critical element. There are several objectives under this cluster. After that, we have NS, right? All right, so apply and extend previous understandings of multiplication and division to divide fractions by fractions. So we're going to extend that fraction knowledge even more. They gained a lot of fraction knowledge in 4th and 5th grade, only the equivalence and the understanding of a fraction in 3rd. But we're really growing that operational sense in 6th grade. We go down to apply and extend previous understandings of numbers to the system of rational numbers. So we also introduced the term of rational numbers. They may have heard it in some text or some curriculums in 5th grade, but we're really going to be the first ones that have this as a priority standard. So a lot of first things that happen in sixth grade, you go, wait a minute, I think I'll go back to another. No, you can do this. This is great. All right. I know you're the first one to do the EEs, expressions and equations. All right. So every single thing that's priority, it's really kind of a first time that we transition. That's because you're in a brand new grade band. K-1-2, developmental mathematics, 3-4-5, operational fluency, and 6-7-8, the beginning of algebraic thinking. And to have algebraic thinking and algebraic reasoning and logic, we have to have ratios, proportions, factors, rational expressions, and the whole extension of fractions. All right, so let's look at the EEs. All right, since you're going to launch them. Apply and extend previous understandings of arithmetic to algebraic expressions. All right, we can do that. Introducing those expressions from arithmetic to algebraic. I know you might say arithmetic, it's okay. But when we say algebraic, we also should say arithmetic. Okay, that was trivia. All right, you don't have to remember that. Reason about and solve one variable equations and inequalities. We have had inequalities greater than. Actually, the very first time kids did greater was in pre-K. Did you know that? It wasn't symbolic, but we said 4 is greater than 3. All right, so I know kids say, oh, inequalities, I don't get it. It's one of those things that have been around longest since they did one-to-one correspondence. They've been saying greater, but we're going to transition that into inequalities. All right. And then we have represent and analyze quantitative relationships between dependent and independent variables. All right, that's part of the proportion knowledge as well, except when we bring it over to the equation world. Giant transition in sixth grade in mathematics. So if we identify learning gaps, we'll have to attend to those because of the big transition in what's going on with the vocabulary, with the standards, with the priority in order to send them to seventh grade. Now, you say, oh my goodness, there's only one supporting cluster. And that's because there's so much transition going on. The supporting cluster is the one dealing with what? Geometry. Okay, so area, surface area, and volume. And that's just another way to look at equations and expressions and use variables. So it really folds in very nicely to the EE standards. It really does. And then what does the yellow mean? Additional. Actually, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics and the DOE in writing the next generation standards said the yellow, the supporting, is to have an awareness. We don't have to drive it home. We just have to have an awareness of this. So what are our awareness? Compute fluently with multi-digit numbers and find common factors and multiples. We've been doing factors and multiples really since fourth grade. All right. So, but we're not doing it fluently. So an awareness, and they're bringing awareness, should bring awareness to the table. Develop understanding of statistical variability. All right. So we know that the statistics and the data flatlined K-8 with next generation learning standards. So we give them an awareness, something we can do in June, right? Something we can do after testing. And then summarize and describe distributions. And that's within statistics also, the SP. All right. So sixth grade, big transition year, priority standards. Let's look at seventh. You go, I'm keeping seventh grade. They only have 4. Okay. Go to the crosswalk. These 4 have zillion objectives under it. All right. You're going to continue what's happening with sixth grade. Sixth grade starts that transition, and seventh grade turns it even into more in-depth learning with ratio and proportion. All right. So we have Analyze proportional relationships and use them in problem solving. Fine. Apply and extend previous understandings of operations with fractions. And now for operations with what? With rational numbers. All right, so we don't have repeating decimals or anything like that. So we're going to do it all with rationals. And then 2 EEs, but very, very, very critical, because we want to send our kids 6th and 7th into 8th grade, which is really kind of pre-algebraic thinking, very successful. Use properties of operations to generate equivalent expressions. So we know how to balance equations and balance and show equivalence in expressions, and solve real life and mathematical problems using numerical and algebraic expressions and equations. Big expression and big equation year. So you're still growing the ratio and proportions. We're still dealing with rational numbers and all the operations. And then really a big emphasis on laying that foundation, getting ready for 8th grade, getting ready for algebra. Okay, so 7th grade is a critical year. We do not want to lose them at all. So priority standards. So what supports that? Random sampling and inferences about a population, and chance, you know, that's probability. Investigate chance processes and develop, use, and evaluate probability models. So you really are the first one to say probability. We might have looked at chance earlier, but not to the in-depth and not as a supporting standard like the 7th grade does. And then 3 things to say what? After testing. Don't do this before testing. No, 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 no. All right, can't do it. So we're going to look at the yellow. The geometry unit is after testing, and you can also extend the stats after testing. Draw, construct geometric figures, describe relationships between them, solve real life and mathematical problems involving angles, angle measurement, surface area, volume. I see a lot of 7th grade classes before spending a lot of time on this. Don't do it before testing. Priority standards, awareness. You've got this, I know. And then comparative inferences about 2 populations. That's kind of really fun. Those are fun projects for June. All right, 7th, got it. 8th grade teachers, 6th and 7th, they've got this. They're going to send you students having those essential elements, those priority standards. And you go, whoa, I'm not going to teach 8th grade ever. Yes, you might. It's really fun. It's really a fun math. I love this math. It's really extremely wonderful. So a lot of EE stuff. And guess what, 8th grade teachers? You're the first one to say functions. All right. The math starts getting very powerful and really fun. All right, so expressions and equations. We work with radicals and integer exponents. They need that number system and rationals and proportions in order to move into exponents and integer exponents. We have integer exponent, negative exponents, they'll go wonky if we don't bring that knowledge in a priority manner, a mastery manner. Understand the connections between proportional relationships. And now we're going to translate that into linear equations and how linear equations relate to one another. So you start to see how we start to put first the fractions put together, the ratio and proportion, then the ratio and proportions put together as linear equations in those proportional relationships. Analyze and solve linear equations and pairs of simultaneous linear equations. Really, really fun stuff. And then, yay, functions. Okay, life doesn't happen until there's functionality. All right, so define, evaluate, and compare them. Use them and model relationships between quantities. So we're really teaching them what a function is. And there's really some fun ways to do that. Look at this. You have a priority standard in the geometry. Okay, that hadn't happened in several grade levels. All right, we're going to teach congruence, similarity, physical models, transparencies, and use geometry software. Desmos is my favorite. And we'll do that another session, really deep. If you haven't done that, you've got to do that soon. And understand and apply the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is always on the Regents, always, 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 always. Maybe not 10 problems, but at least 2 almost every year. All right, so we have to do that. So what supports our big band in 8th grade? We only have 3 other ones. So we may spend the entire time before testing on priority, and that would be okay. All right. Your brighter students, let's weave in those supporting clusters. But there is so much in 8th grade, we have to focus on the priority before testing. So the supporting is know that there are numbers that are not rational. Okay, so we haven't said irrational before. And how to approximate them and investigate patterns with bivariate data. Usually there's one little stat or a couple of stat questions on the Regents. And so we would look at previous tests to say, okay, what do I need to pull out of the stat? And I would do that right before testing. But the big bang for buck is, you know, equations, the old pre-algebra look, equations, graphing, functions. And then what do I say for June? No, conics, cylinders, spheres, real world problems with that. And that's really fun stuff too. All right, so that was 6, 7, and 8. What are we going to do with that? Well, first of all, you know that was vertical. I mean, you know this was horizontal, right? Yeah, within grade level. Now we look at the vertical. I put the whole thing on here because I wanted you to see the story, to see how kids grow in mathematics. The K-8 story is so important in mathematics. We hold as K-8 teachers, 6-8 teachers right now, but we also have to attend to all those learning gaps. So you might as well say K-8. All right, sometimes we say 4-8, sometimes we say 3-8. Even though we're responsible for 6, 7, 8. We find lots of learning gaps. But in the K-8 story, we prepare them for higher level mathematics. Will they be successful in secondary math? 8th grade, 5th and 8th grade really determine that. All right, so 8th grade, I hate to tell you that people say 8th grade is last chance. So I won't say it. Didn't hear it from me. But am I calculus bound? Am I engineering bound? Are my high school days going to spend relearning algebra over and over again? Okay, so let's look at this story very quickly. K1-2 is developmental, understanding of numeracy. 3, 4, 5, operational fluency. And then 6, 7, and 8 take on their own stories. 6, we saw that. Giant transition. 7th, a transition extended into arithmetic sequences, arithmetic rational numbers. And then finally, 8th grade, all on your own there. You really are. Linear algebra and linear functions belongs to you. All right, let's see how we're going to get kids ready for that. And you go, wait a minute, I liked those very plain slides. This is so busy, I'm going to have to close my eyes. Well, this is putting it all together. Just focus on the 1, 2, 3. All right, the red arrows, 1, 2, 3. Then it's not so busy. We're going to take the priority alignment to your new curriculum. All right, so I know some of you are saying, I don't use Envision. I don't use Savas either. Okay, Envision, Pearson, this is free part. Pearson, Envision, and Savas are all the same thing. Envision is the textbook. It is the math curriculum. Pearson owns it. They own a lot of different curriculums. And then Savas is the digital platform. All right, and that's for free. I won't say it again. You run me back and listen to it again if you need it. All right, that's free. So, but this is how to put your priorities and your new curriculum together so we can do the pacing. 1, I always use the topic planner. I really like the topic planners in Envision. On the right side are the standards, and I noticed these are expressions and equations. I look down at my priority list. Yep, that's priority, EE. All right, good. And then I notice that this is in topic 4, and lessons 4.1, 4.2, and so on go in it. 1, standards. 2, priority. Yes, it is. Put those lessons in there. But I don't use Envision. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you're an HMH person. You do Intermath. HMH, Houghton Mifflin. Okay, you got that. That's who owns it. Intermath is the curriculum. And you might have interreading too. I don't know. Or in the K-5, you might know that. All right, so 1, I look at the standards. Some people may browse by module. I think that takes too long, especially if you don't know the curriculum very well. So go with the standards, click it. It tells you all the places that those standards pop up. And then I did the same one. So of course it's priority. And then it's in module 7. You go, how can that be? Was in topic 4. Now it's in module 7. That's why it's important to build your own pacing. We have to go seek and find those priority standards within our curriculum and make sure we do them. And then you're saying now, oh, I don't use HMH. I don't use Envision. Okay, well, hopefully I've attended to all of them that you have. Eureka, Great Minds. And you say, isn't that the same as or like Engage? All right, so here we go. Engage New York, this is trivia. Engage New York was the curriculum that was written from the grant. It didn't market well because it said what? New York. So they changed the name to Eureka. It is the same, exactly the same curriculum. And then the digital platform is Great Minds, kind of like Savas. All right, so you have that, and that's all free. So 1, 2, 3, 1, look at the standards. Is it priority? It's a module 3. And you go, okay, module 3, module 4, module 7. It's however the textbook publisher put it together. But we are the instructional specialist, and we are the ones that build the pacing from the priority standards for January through May. So our kids can be successful at that grade level and successful on the state testing, and then they will be successful at the next grade level. That's very important. So how does this go? 1, 2, 3. Standards in the text, match it to priority, put the lessons in the pacing guide. Standards in the text, 1. Match to priority standards, 2. Put the lessons in the pacing guide, 3. And you might say, what pacing guide? What pacing guide? I don't have a pacing guide. Where did I get a pacing? Okay. Being 6, 7, 8, you have a pacing guide, some kind of matrix or some kind. It's not the curriculum map. Curriculum map doesn't have dates on it. It doesn't have lesson numbers on it. It has, in fact, that's a curriculum map, this kind of thing right there. All right, so that's not pacing. Pacing looks like this. It has a place to put, it has a place to put objectives, and we're going to only list the green ones, only the green ones. And then you pick up the modules. And sometimes you see it was module 4, module 3, module 7, depending on what text you have, the date you're going to teach it, and the lessons. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.7, 4.9, and whatever. All right. The days of instruction give you a gauge because you count, because you want to do that. Build in learning gaps, attending to those. And then how do we know they know? The assessment. Now, if you don't have one, I actually, this is mine. I just made it. All right. This is the one I always use. I like things to line up vertically. It's the way my brain works. And so I will put this in the resources, in the Google Classroom, everything we talk about. I'll start building a resource library this week for you. And since it's a Google Doc, if you write in it, you write in it for everybody. So you need to download my Google Docs and make it your own. If you don't think vertical like I do, I worked for a school last summer building curriculum, and they wanted everything written in linear format in horizontal lines. My brain doesn't work that way, but I did it for them. And if you would like another template, or you can Google a template, do not pay for one, okay? We can make these things. All right. So you can have this and put your pacing guide together. So 1, 2, 3, standards, priority, lessons on the pacing guide, and that's what it looks like. All right. That's your charge. So what is a big idea? So to review, 2022 Road to Pacing, better known, we've said this for a long time, countdown to Regents, teach priority. That's exactly what we're going to do. Or we're getting kids ready for the next grade level. So priority standards, what is taught to mastery, align the priority standards, the major clusters, with your new curriculum, identify those lessons, put them on the pacing guide, and then allow extra time for emphasis. For emphasis, I have to tell you, I apologize. I have 3 sons, and they always said, Mom, when it's for emphasis, say it twice and the second time louder. So when I say for emphasis, they've conditioned me. I say for emphasis. Our whole family does, and I know. Okay, I'm going on. This is a nerd family. All right, I'm going on. So allow extra time for emphasis, and differentiation when needed. We build that into the pacing. It's very important. We attend to the learning gaps, or kids won't have mastery. Got to do that. And then, that's the planning. And then 5, deliver the instruction. And how do we know they know? Well, we assess them. Now, you've seen this, if you were with me that last spring, you've seen this before. I just want to remind you, we don't need to wait till Friday test or, Thursday quiz, but we need to know every single day, are they learning? And we do that by monitoring that authentic assessment piece. And so what it looks like is this, not vicious, this lovely circle: planning, instruction, observation, documentation, track, review that, and interpret it to go back and plan more. All right. So maybe that's when differentiation is needed, or gamification, or something with motivation. And then we plan and instruct and observe, and we do that. And that's what our day needs to look like every single day. All right. So we need to know how we know they know. All right. We have to do this. And then this is just for free. I will talk later in another session about this, authentic performance. How do we keep that evidence? Usually in portfolios. And I listed some portfolio links. I will, when I build that resource library this week for you, look back at your Google Classroom. And like you've seen these before, a portfolio toolbox, if you wanted to do that. And so you are ready to go. All right, you're ready to go. I also want to remind you, this is from level one, part 1 in session 1, where we looked at Achieve the Core. And that's just a great place to look and say, oh, my kids aren't getting this. Let's map it. And there you have your differentiation. You're identifying the learning gaps and attending to those, because it is major. We are going to do it to mastery, but we have to be purposeful about that planning. All right, now it's just a reminder. If you want, again, also a reminder about the crosswalks, and I won't go there. That gives you real detail about each specific objective. Now, I wouldn't be Pam Work if I didn't talk about retention. We've spent, 60 minutes, 30 and 30, that's easy math. Learning about pacing and planning and all that stuff and priority standards. And I want you to remember. So anytime that I spend time, anytime you spend time planning for your kids and delivering quality instruction, I want them to remember. How do we do that? Through experiences, personal and real life in your teaching. Okay. When you see, for emphasis, okay, and that just happened when I put it up there. And then I thought about that because that's the way we have to do it. You're going to remember because I taught it through an experience from my family. All right. We made it real life. That's what the brain loves. The brain loves for you to make it real, not symbolic and flipping and whatever, that we want this real for them. And then, of course, close the lesson. That's your file, save as, put it in the neocortex. All right. And sorry about the little pun with recap. I knew you'd remember it though. Now that you've watched part 1 and part 2, go to the next section in your Google Classroom, complete the reflection. When you do, that releases the attendance for you. So you've done all the requirements. Watch, reflect, fill in your attendance, and you have done it. You have the credit for your professional learning development, and you know how that works. The attendance makes me make a list and I send it to the diocese. But I want to thank you so much for your time learning with me about mathematics and the teaching of mathematics. And I want you to have a really great day. If you need to know where I am, put it in the Google Classroom, or there's my email, and you can stop it if you need to do that in the recording. And have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.